to continue hearing racist words coming from major political leaders. Now, I don't believe in some foreign ism, but I do believe in American idealism. And one of the pleasures, one of the real joys that I've experienced on this campaign so far, being here today with you, being all over the country, is seeing the huge numbers of young people who are coming out, who want to make this country better, who want to use their intelligence and their energy to address the many problems that we have. So I want to thank all of the young people here and all over this country for their idealism, and do not become cynical. I am not running for president because it is my turn. Not quite. I was born in a 3.5-room apartment in a working class family in Brooklyn, New York. I don't think. Okay. So I got Brooklyn, I got Vermont. And by the way, I visited California. But in seriousness, it is not quite my turn. That's not why I'm running for president. But I am running for president in order for all of us to be able to live in a nation of hope and opportunity, not for some, but for my 7 grandchildren and for all of you. Nobody understood better than Franklin Delano Roosevelt the connection between American strength at home and our ability to defend America around the world. And that is why he proposed a second Bill of Rights in 1944. And he said in that very same State of the Union, and I quote again, "America's own rightful place in the world depends in large part upon how fully these and similar rights have been carried into practice for all our citizens. For unless there is security here at home, there cannot be lasting peace in the world," end quote. Now, I am not running for president to pursue reckless adventures abroad, but to rebuild America's strength at home. I will never hesitate to defend this nation, but I will never send our sons and daughters to war under false pretense or pretenses about dubious battles with no end in sight. And as we discuss foreign policy, I know that all of you share with me your shock and your horror at what happened in Paris, and you share with me your condolences for the families who lost loved ones and your hopes and prayers that those who were wounded will recover. And also those same thoughts go out to the families of those who lost loved ones in the Russian flight that we believe was taken down by an ISIS bomb, and also those who lost their lives to terrorist attacks in Lebanon and elsewhere. To my mind, it is clear that the United States must pursue policies to destroy the brutal and barbaric ISIS regime and to create conditions that prevent fanatical extremist ideologies from flourishing. But we cannot and should not do it alone. Our response must begin with an understanding of past mistakes and missteps in our previous approaches to foreign policy. It begins with the acknowledgement that unilateral military action should be a last resort, not a first resort. And that ill-conceived military decisions such as the invasion of Iraq can wreak far-reaching devastation and destabilization over regions for decades. It begins with the reflection that the failed policy decisions of the past, rushing to war, regime change in Iraq, or toppling Mohammad Mossadegh in Iran in 1953. Mossadegh was the president. CIA and others got rid of him to protect British petroleum interests. The Shah of Iran came in, a brutal dictator, and he was thrown out by the Islamic Revolution, and that is where we are in Iran today. Decisions have consequences, often unintended consequences. So whether it was Saddam Hussein or Mossadegh or Guatemalan President Arbenz in 1954 in Guatemala, Brazilian President Goulart in 1964, Chilean President Allende in 1973, this type of regime change, this type of overthrowing governments we may not like, often does not work, often makes a bad and difficult decision even worse. These are lessons we must learn. After World War II, in response to the fear of Soviet aggression, European nations and the United States established NATO, the North American Treaty Organization, an organization based on shared interest and goals and the notion of a collective defense against a common enemy. It is my belief that we must expand on these ideals and solidify our commitments to work together to combat the global threat of terror. We must create a new organization like NATO to confront the security threats of the 21st century, an organization that emphasizes cooperation and collaboration to defeat the rise of violent extremism and, importantly, to address the root causes underlying these brutal acts. We must work with our NATO partners. We must work to expand the coalition with Russia, and we must work with members of the Arab League. But let us be very clear. While the United States and other Western nations have the strength of our militaries and our political systems, the fight against ISIS is a struggle for the soul of Islam, and countering violent extremism and destroying ISIS must be done primarily by Muslim nations with the strong support.
All right, we want to start this hour welcoming you into Fox and Friends on this Sunday morning. We want to bring in the 2016 presidential frontrunner right now in the campaign. Donald Trump is joining us on the phone. Mr. Trump, nice to have you here on Fox and Friends on this Sunday.
Good morning.
We want to get your take on what the president said while he's traveling in Malaysia overnight. Around 5 in the morning our time, the president made some statements about where we are in this battle against ISIS. And he says we're not at war with an entire religion. Listen to the president when he gets your response.
We will not give in to fear or start turning on each other or treating some people differently because of religion or race or background. That wouldn't just be a betrayal of our values, it would also feed ISIL's propaganda. Their assertion, which is absolutely false, that we must absolutely reject, that we are somehow at war with an entire religion.
Mr. Trump, your response to the president last night in Malaysia.
Well, he's so politically correct that he's never going to solve the problem. I think it's disgusting, actually. He doesn't want to talk about the problem, doesn't want to use the radical Islamic terrorist type term, doesn't want to get involved in that. I mean, it's disgusting. He was saying the other day, just before the attack in Paris, that he has ISIS contained. They're contained like hell, they're contained. And they're getting worse, and they're getting bigger, and they're getting more emboldened. And we better get somebody in there that knows what he's doing in terms of a president, because I will tell you what, this man doesn't have a clue. I honestly don't think he was meant for the job. He doesn't have a clue. He speaks badly. He speaks the wrong tone when he made his speech the other day in Europe. That was it was a disgrace. It was a disgrace for our country. It was a total disgrace.
Now, Mr.
So
Trump,
we have to get somebody in that knows what he or she is doing.
Mr. Trump, you want to be that man. You had a big rally in Alabama yesterday and repeated your part of your plan, which is you keep saying, let's bomb the hell out of ISIS. Republican Senator John McCain, chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, told USA Today a couple of days ago that, in his words, bombing the hell out of them is not enough. I think the voters deserve more specifics rather than those kinds of platitudes. I know you've sparred with McCain before, and I know you've also said you don't want to give the enemy the entire plan. But President Obama would say he's been bombing ISIS as well. Is that really enough?
Well, Senator McCain's been working on this war for 12 years, 14, 15 years. All these guys. I watched Lindsey Graham, totally wrong concept. He wants to be a tough guy. He's not a tough guy. Look at what's happening to him in the polls. He's got zero. They're not tough guys. You got to be smart, and you have to know what you're doing. I've been saying bomb the oil to you people. I've been saying it for 2 years. They finally started doing it a couple of days ago. And I'm saying also keep the oil, but they should have done that. You wouldn't have had ISIS because they got their wealth from the oil. They got most of their wealth from the oil. So I've been saying for 2 years, maybe more than that. I actually said keep the oil when they were going out, when Obama announced a date, which was one of the dumbest things in military history, when he announced a date that we're leaving on a certain date. So the enemy just pulled back, waited for that date, and then now they do whatever they want to do. But I've been saying bomb the oil, take the oil for a long time. They just started doing that 2 years ago. You wouldn't have ISIS if they listened to me in the first place. And guys like McCain and guys like Lindsey Graham, they don't know what they're doing. I mean, honestly, they've been fighting this war for so long. And, they talk like tough guys, but their plan is totally wrong. I listened to their plan. Their plan is totally wrong. So you've got to get a group together. It's got to be a very strong group. You got to go in and you got to just take these people out. These are bad dudes, and we have to take them out, and we have to take them out fast and strong, and we can't mess around. And you want to do it with a coalition because you do need boots on the ground. And you have people over there like the Kurds. Those are the people that were, I don't know, everything that I see, they're the ones that want to fight. They seem to be the most reliable fighters. We give so much. We give billions of dollars of equipment, of military equipment, to people that run away with it, that run away as soon as a bullet's fired in the air, and then the enemy takes over our equipment. The enemy has better equipment than we do. They take over all our 2,300 brand-new Humvees, armor-plated, the best. We wouldn't have so many wounded warriors if they were able to use that kind of equipment. The enemy took it over with a couple of shots in the air. So we have to know who we're giving it to. And there's a plan that would be unbelievably effective in the war, but we have to get it together. I said also letting Russia bomb ISIS, good thing. Don't forget, ISIS knocked down the plane. They're no friends. And Russia's really now bombing the hell out of them. Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing. Lindsey Graham was saying, they're taking it. What does he want, the ego of bombing? If Russia wants to bomb, let them bomb. We've been quagmired in the Middle East for so long now. It's been such a long time. Afghanistan's our longest war, but we've been quagmired there for so many years. We have to rebuild our country, but we have to go out and we have to get rid of this cancer. And the news, because even on Fox last night, they called this, I call him the guy with the dirty hat. They call him the mastermind. We have to stop using the word mastermind because he's not a mastermind. He's a thug. I call him the guy with the dirty hat. We have to use better terms to demean because these people are taking our youth and other youth throughout the world, and they're signing up for ISIS because they think the masterminds. They think the masterminds are so cool.
You're not one to shy away from lightning rod topics, and you basically doubled down again on a topic that has a lot of people fired up today. You were talking about surveilling mosques, and you had a cheering audience there. Expand a little bit on that for us. It's something that we had here in New York City under Ray Kelly, the police commissioner here. Kind of got a little bit of some folks testy about it. Talk to me about what you would do.
Not only a cheering audience, a massive audience. It was incredible, and it was just amazing. Every audience is like that wherever I go because of what I'm saying. It's common sense and it's good, but you have to surveil the mosque. I mean, trouble's coming out of the mosques, whether we like to say it or not, whether it's politically correct. I don't care about political correctness. I'm like beyond political. We have taken political correctness to a point where we can't do anything as a country anymore, so I don't care. The problems are coming out of the mosques. We have a lot of problems. They all know what's happening. You know it. I know it. They go into the mosques and they speak, and other people in the mosque, even if they're not involved, they know the good ones, they know the bad ones, they know where the problems are coming. In New York City, we used to have that, but our new mayor, who is going to go down as the worst in history, the worst in the history of New York, he is a disaster, de Blasio. He ended that whole program of the mosque. We had surveillance under Ray Kelly.
Of their global partners. Now, this has been my view long before Paris, but I am very happy to tell you that these same sentiments have been echoed by people like Jordan's King Abdullah II in a speech just Sunday, in which he said that terrorism is the greatest threat to our region, the Gulf region, Middle East, and that Muslims must lead the fight against it. He noted that confronting extremism is both a regional and international responsibility, and that it is incumbent on Muslim nations and communities to confront those who seek to hijack their societies and their religion with generations of intolerance and violent ideology. And let me congratulate King Abdullah not only for his wise remarks, but also for the role that his small country is playing in attempting to address the horrific refugee crisis in that region. A new and strong coalition of Western powers, Muslim nations, and countries like Russia must come together in a strongly coordinated way to combat ISIS, to seal the borders that fighters are currently flowing across, to share counterterrorism intelligence, to cut off the spigot of terrorist financing, and to end support for exporting extremist ideologies. Now, what does that mean? What it means is that in many cases, we must ask more from those countries in the Gulf region. While Jordan, Turkey, Egypt, and Lebanon, in their own ways, have accepted their responsibilities for taking in Syrian refugees, other countries in the region have done nothing or very little. Equally important, and this is a point that may make some people uncomfortable, but it is a point that must be made. Countries in the region, like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, countries of enormous wealth and resources, have contributed far too little in the fight against ISIS. That must change. King Abdullah is absolutely right when he says that the Muslim nations must lead the fight against ISIS, and that includes and must include some of the most wealthy and powerful nations in the region who, up to this point, have done far.
We have actually a very good police commissioner now, Bill Bratton, but he was told very strongly that we can't surveil the mosques, which is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And
Mr. Trump, earlier on the show, we had Governor Huckabee on the show, and we asked him that very question on the surveillance of mosques, and he disagreed with you, saying that he still loves the Constitution, and that when you start to surveil certain, without a warrant, members of United States citizens, that you basically throw away the Constitution. What do you say to Governor Huckabee?
Well, he said get a certificate. I call it a certificate, and that's fine. You could do that. Get it quietly and get it if you want to do it that way. I personally don't care. I want the mosque surveilled. And if you don't do that, we're being foolish. We're kidding ourselves. I mean, it's the problem's not coming out of the middle of Sweden. It's not coming out of Norway. It's not coming out of Denmark. It's coming out of
Social media, though, has been a big recruiting ground for these ISIS folks who have realized.
Oh, yeah, sure. No, they're recruiting from other places. They're recruiting for us. How about they recruit from us? People go to ISIS, they fight for ISIS, then they come back into our country like nothing happened. So one of the other things they do, once they leave our country to fight for ISIS, they never, ever come back. It's over. It's over. And this is even beyond the wall. We're going to build the wall. You know, that crowd went crazy yesterday when I said build the wall. We're going to have borders, and we're going to have real borders, and they're going to be tough and strong, and people are going to come in, but they're going to come in legally. But once somebody, and this is so important, Juliet, once somebody leaves our country to fight for ISIS, because they've been seduced on the Internet. You know, the Internet, these guys are using the Internet better than we do. We have to get smart people to use the Internet and social media because they're taking a lot of people, unsuspecting youth, that frankly doesn't know what they're doing, and they go to fight for ISIS, and then they want to come back home, and we take them home. I mean, you can't run you cannot run a country dumber than what we're running. And then we talk about the president that says everything's contained, and then a few hours later, the whole world blows up.
Well, Mr. Trump, you've been leading the polls, continue to dominate the polls on the Republican side. People are wondering, well, how would you match up against the person who's dominating the Democratic polls, Hillary Clinton? David Axelrod, the president's longtime advisor, had this to say, quote, I believe he would be defeated handily in a general election matchup with Hillary, in part because his anti-immigrant rants have left him with negatives among Hispanic Americans approaching 80%. I would add to that, sir, that yesterday at that large rally you had, there's video going viral of an African-American protester from Black Lives Matter who appears to have gotten roughed up. We don't know who did it, whether it was supporters, whether it was security. Can you comment on that and whether or not you want to remedy that situation? And then react to David Axelrod saying that you are going to lose a general election.
Well, first of all, with Axelrod, of course he's going to say that. Polls are showing that I would beat her easily. You've seen the polls. You've been putting them on, where in many of the key states I'm killing Hillary. I'm beating her so easily. Hillary is highly overrated. She doesn't have the strength or the stamina to be president, in my opinion. She's not strong enough, and she doesn't have any stamina whatsoever. And you need a lot of stamina to be the proper president, or we're going to have another 4 years or 8 years of, if she can make it, you're going to have another 4 years of trauma for this country because our country's going down. We're being laughed at all over the world. So Axelrod's going to say that. Axelrod is the one that I called up a number of years ago when I saw a bad-looking tent. They were having a state dinner. I saw a bad-looking tent, a disgusting-looking tent for a state dinner for China. They were honoring China, even though China is ripping our pockets out. They were honoring China. I called up. I said, I will build a ballroom at the White House for $100 million, and I will get it built. It'll be vetted. It'll be magnificent. You'll go through 5 different architectural firms, hopefully all from the United States. We'll pick something beautiful. I will build it free of charge to the United States. He said, oh, well, we can't do that. So, you know, this is a guy wouldn't take a $100 million gift.
Well, you may have a chance to do that.
$100 million gift for the country. And you know what? He should have done that. But, you know, just, it's just the way the government is run. Well, I may have a chance to do that. But I will tell you that the man that was I don't know, you say roughed up, he was so obnoxious and so loud. He was screaming. I had 10,000 people in the room yesterday, 10,000 people. And this guy started screaming by himself. And they did, I don't know, rough up. Maybe he should have been roughed up because it was absolutely disgusting what he was doing. This was not handled the way Bernie Sanders handled his problem, I will tell you. But I have a lot of fans, and they were not happy about it. And this was a very obnoxious guy who was a troublemaker who was looking to make trouble. But Donald Trump, I didn't get to see the event.
We appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for coming on Fox and Friends Weekend. And on top of that, there's a new poll Fox will have at the top of the hour, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be very interesting news for Donald Trump. Everyone's going to want to watch.
Breaking tonight in a Kelly Pyle exclusive, we have new reaction from a top GOP presidential candidate after President Obama today suggested he is ready to take a tougher stand against the Islamic State terror group, yet then made a pivot, sort of, to climate change. Listen.
This barbaric terrorist group poses a serious threat to all of us. It cannot be tolerated. It must be destroyed. We cannot and we will not succumb to fear. Next week, I will be joining President Hollande and world leaders in Paris for the Global Climate Conference. What a powerful rebuke to the terrorists it will be.
Joining me now, presidential candidate and Republican senator from Texas, Ted Cruz. Senator, good to see you tonight. So President Obama came out and tried to strike a tougher tone on the subject of ISIS today. What did you make of it?
Well, Megan, it's good to be with you. You know, it's gotten to the point where I don't think Saturday Night Live can even parody this president anymore. A couple of weeks ago, he went overseas and he said he's not interested in America leading. He's not interested in America winning. He doesn't have time for that. And now he's saying what a powerful rebuke it is to ISIS that he's going to a global warming summit.
Well, in Paris.
I mean, how out of touch.
In Paris.
And yes, but his focus, listen, President Obama and John Kerry have both said that they think essentially your SUV in the driveway is a greater threat to our security than is ISIS, than is a nuclear Iran, and it makes no sense whatsoever. You know what would be a real rebuke to ISIS? When we kill the terrorist before they carry out another terror attack here at home, murdering innocent
Americans. When you listen to him, he's said today this is a barbarous group, that they're a serious threat, that they must be destroyed. Do you think this was in reaction to the criticism he received over his initial reaction to the Paris attacks, or do you take him at his word on what he said today?
Well, look, he's finally using the adjectives for ISIS that he usually reserves for Republicans and for conservatives, so I guess that's a step in the right direction. But at the end of the day, he still refuses to utter the words radical Islamic terrorism. He still has no strategy for defeating ISIS. And he still wants to bring to America tens of thousands of Syrian Muslim refugees, even after his own FBI director admitted this administration cannot vet the refugees to ensure they're not ISIS terrorists. That doesn't make any sense.
Let me shift gears with you now to the politics, because there's been an extraordinary shift in the presidential race. You may be familiar with it. And it inures to your benefit. I mean, all the headlines today were about Ted Cruz and cruise control in Iowa. Take a look at the numbers for the viewers who haven't seen it. Ted Cruz is now basically tied for first. He's behind Donald Trump by 2 points, but man, you're right there in the margin of error in Iowa, besting Carson and the rest of the field by at least 5 points. What do you make of it? What do you attribute your surge?
Well, listen, the energy and momentum we're seeing both in Iowa and nationally are nothing short of breathtaking. And this is a continuation of what has been happening steadily after the third debate, after the fourth debate, which is that we're seeing conservatives unite behind our campaign. What Washington has always wanted is to divide conservatives, to have us splintered. A chunk of conservatives here, a chunk of evangelicals, a chunk of libertarians, a chunk of Tea Party folks. It's a mistake we've made over and over and over again, whether it was Bob Dole or John McCain or Mitt Romney. Every time we listen to the voice of run to the middle, we get clobbered. It doesn't work. They're all good, honorable men, but what they did didn't work. And I think what Republican primary voters are looking for is the strongest proven conservative, someone who's a consistent conservative, someone who's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and also someone who can unite all three legs of the Republican stool
but are you in trouble now on the
fiscal
NSA
conservatives,
vote?
Social conservatives, and national security conservatives.
You voted to undo the NSA, which is now you're getting hit by some on the right, but you're the mainstream moderate guy. They say you voted to undo the NSA protection.
Now let's
and you should have moved to the right.
Let's speak the truth. I'm not getting hit by anyone on the right. I'm getting hit by a PAC. Yes, by a PAC supporting Marco Rubio.
Our leaders must keep America safe. But when Ted Cruz had the chance to fight Barack Obama's dangerously weak anti-terror policies, he didn't.
Marco Rubio's PAC is doing this because they desperately want to change the discussion from his longtime support of President Obama's massive amnesty plan. This PAC ad by Rubio's supporter, where they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, listen, what it really is, Megan, is it's a sign of desperation. They want to try to change the topic because I think Marco's campaign is determined that his longtime support of Chuck Schumer and Barack Obama's amnesty plan, particularly making it easier to bring Syrian Muslim refugees into this country, that they're now worried about it politically, so they want to change it with a false attack act.
And the latest polls show the public of 67% there against letting the refugees in. Senator Ted Cruz, it's always great talking to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Megan. It's great to be with you.